Yeah, I'd love to start out with some basketball. Let's talk about like you growing up playing basketball. When did you realize you were good at basketball?
Well, what happened is, so I'm going to regress a little bit, but um, so I'm up, brought up first generation Italian Irish. My parents, my dad's Italian. Most people know I'm Italian because of my last name, Bonvicini. But my mother actually was from Ireland. Okay. My dad, mom came to the United States when they were really young, actually through Ellis Island. And my dad was a very good athlete, okay, and loved all kinds of sports. So they saw in me right away when I mean, they would talk about even when I was 2 years old, I could throw a ball. So my first sport was baseball with the kids. And, you don't do this anymore, but in the neighborhood, we would play all the time. I was just crushed. I guess I was about 9 or 10 when I couldn't play little league. I didn't, I was beating all the boys, so let me play. And they didn't allow girls on the team. We moved when I was about 9 or 10 and we finally got our own house. We were living prior to that with in a duplex with, top and bottom floors. We're on the top floor with my Italian grandparents. But once we moved, it was the first time in that neighborhood now that kids had basketballs and hoops on their garages. We didn't have a garage, so I went down the street and I loved it. And so, how you get involved in sports is, it's different than now. Everything's so structured. We would play all day. I mean, all day. And I didn't have a hoop in my backyard, but I went to my friends and I had my ball and I worked on ball handling, shooting. I mean, I played with the boys all day. And so I was 9 and I was good. I just remember that I loved it. And, when you love something, it's not work, it's fun.
When did you think you could play at the college level?
Um, well, in high school, this was prior to Title IX. So my parents, like I said, they knew I was good and growing. So I grew up in Connecticut, and at that time, the public schools weren't as organized, let's say, with sports. And so I grew up Catholic, and so the Catholic schools were into sports. And so at that time, my parents put all myself and my sister. So I have 3 sisters and a brother. We went to Catholic schools, and the Catholic high school, which at that time was all girls, it was Cathedral High in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Now it's Colby Cathedral, which is now co-ed. But they had basketball, and they knew right away. I mean, uh, eighth grade night when I moved. I mean, I was leading scorer from the very beginning, and my coach knew that I was good, and I was encouraged then right away that I was going to be able to play at the next level. And at that time, so UConn, everyone thinks that I went to UConn. I didn't, because UConn was not good, and the school I went to was called is called Southern Connecticut State University. They're now Division II. At that time, Division I. I had a tremendous coach, Louise O'Neill. I played in 3 Final Fours in college. Had great. I was a point guard. Great people around me. 2 of my teammates were Olympians in the first Olympics, and for women's basketball was 1976. I was a finalist. I mean, it was a very high level, and we played. I became friends with people from all over the country. So, you don't realize until you get older. Like, it was a very unique experience, and I was very fortunate to grow up and be in an area that had very good coaches. Like, I was very fortunate to have great people around me.
I scouted football players for 12 years, and so I love asking athletes to evaluate themselves. So give me like the scouting report of you as a basketball player.
I'm 5'8.5", so that's pretty good size for a point guard. At that time, I was the tallest point guard, I believe, in the country. Very quick, long arms, quick hands, very quick, very good ball handler. I believe I led the nation in assists and steals. I was a better scorer than shooter. My form isn't perfect. Um, but I think, a pretty good leader. Um, and I I loved it. I think that now I'm a coach, or what, I'm always going to be a coach, but I had no problem leading my team, or telling them what to do, or getting after them, or saying, I know we can do this. Let's go. I was pretty good defender, and but I'd say overall I found a way. Very competitive, love to win.
When you were playing in college, were you thinking about anything other than basketball, or did basketball just totally consume your entire day?
Well, even at that time, I mean, I loved basketball. So I was one of the kids who loved to practice. Um, Basketball was a very huge part of my life, but I really didn't see it as a way to continue afterwards, because they didn't have the opportunities at that time as you do today. So I was, we didn't have scholarships, even though Title IX changed in 1972. It didn't have the impact until later on, in the mid to late 70s. So my coach, though, always felt that I should stay in basketball and coach. I to make extra money, because we weren't on scholarship, I was her student assistant, and we were very close. And she took me to some clinics that she attended. So I was going to basketball clinics and listening to coaches when I was playing. And so she just said, "Joan, you need to give this a try." I ended up, after college, and she helped with this too, myself and a teammate, where we were in California just after we graduated that summer, to play in the first women's big summer league. And that was in Los Angeles. And I loved it. So, going East Coast, going to West Coast is I mean, I loved it. It was fun. So I decided I'd stay, and she helped, my coach helped me with, so I had another job, a real job. My first coaching job was, I was an assistant, and I thought I'd give it a try at Cal Poly Pomona, which now is Division II. At that time, Division I. I made $1,000 a year. And I worked for a tremendous coach who's actually in the Hall of Fame, Darlene May, who's unfortunately passed away since, but she was a good mentor for me. So I worked for her for 2 years.
Was the intention to get into coaching, or was it
Um,
just that you kinda just got into it because you just loved basketball and you were able to stay around it while coaching?
well, I was doing a few things. So I actually, this is hard to believe, but it's true. To make money, I mean, because you're not going to live on $1,000 a year. I was worked for a Fortune 500 company, and I was a computer programmer. So, I took some classes in college, and computer programming was starting to be big, so I got hired. And so I did that from 6 a.m. to 3. I worked as an assistant, as I said, at Cal Poly Pomona. And in that first year, I was training for the Olympic team. So on top of doing all that, I was training at least 3 hours a day. The coaching part, is I realized I liked it and I was good at it. And so after 2 years at Cal Poly Pomona, I wanted to try to get to a little bit bigger school. And I took a job as an assistant at Long Beach State. And I did that for I was there as an assistant for 2 years, but after the first semester, I quit my programming job. So I went from making pretty good money to, I think it was 10 or 12,000 as an assistant. And at that time I was teaching classes, and my parents were not happy, but I just felt that I could do this. And it was obviously the right decision.
what what made being a coach and going on to be a head coach being like your calling, or what you wanted to do for your career?
Well, I think a couple things. So here I went to Long Beach State, and it was a good team. I worked for another very good coach who mentored me, Dr. Fran Chasma. And Fran was a really good coach. And players would come in, and Long Beach State was a pretty good team. But I started doing something I learned from working with some of the guys is I started recruiting. And my first class there, so I was assistant, we went from being a pretty good team, and I signed, I think, 5 new kids, brought them in. We were top 25. And then in my second year as assistant, and I knew Fran might retire, I brought in arguably the #1 player in the country. And so here I am, assistant, bring in this player, with a few other kids. And then Fran retires, and I get named head coach. We were a top 10 team before going into my first year as head coach. So this player was, her name's LaTanya Pollard. I mean, honestly, to this day, and she was the best player. I mean, she was Olympian as a freshman in college, All-American, and ended up being, the Wade Trophy winner, leading scorer for the country. I mean, she's unbelievable. Today, again, she'd be up for player of the year, or if not player of the year for the country. She was that good, 5'11" shooting guard. Yeah.
In all your time being a coach, women's basketball in particular has changed, I'm sure, a ton.
Mhm.
What's the biggest difference to you?
Okay, so the biggest difference is players still loved it, but now there's more good players. Okay, so in different, all over the country, there's still pockets, obviously in Southern California or California, East Coast, and Texas. But you go to different parts of the country, there's good players all over the place. There were also a handful of really good teams year in and year out. I mean, you still can say UConn now, you can say Stanford, obviously Notre Dame, but now there's a lot of good teams. Getting a LaTanya Pollard for me. So LaTanya is from Indiana, East Chicago, Indiana. I mean, now if the Big Ten would let her come out, they would be crazy, and there weren't enough really good teams in the Midwest. And, I think the thing that helped me as a coach, definitely as a recruiter, but everything I do, to be a good coach and be a good recruiter is about relationships. I think I have a really good eye on getting the kind of player that I like. And I can see that and definitely seeing them and try to project out where they'll be, and that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I've hit it, out of the park, and then I've made mistakes, but I think it's when the players have a relationship, and, you have to earn people's trust. You can't demand it. You've got to earn it. And I think a true coach, what you do is you empower others, and you see things in people that they don't necessarily see in themselves. And I was able to do that for a lot of players, and my assistants did that with them, and I enjoyed it, and that's really the most rewarding of all the things I've done.
How did you help your athletes with the balance of not only trying to excel at basketball, but try to figure out what else they want to do in their life, maybe beyond basketball?
Well, the great thing about working at the university and college level is you're getting players, they've had 17, 18 years with their families and other coaches, family members. Is you're getting them to come into an environment where they're learning and learning new things, and particularly if they're from out of the area, experiencing a whole new, just things are different. It's very regimented when they come in. That's how you get people to be good. But just exposing them to new things. Some of them have an idea of what they want to do potentially when they leave, but many don't, or it changes while they're there. And it's fun. And my thing is just to try to get our teams in things that maybe they wouldn't expose themselves to. So for example, I'm very involved in any community I lived in. When I was head coach at Long Beach State, I was very involved in Southern California, volunteering, putting myself out. In Tucson, I did that at University of Arizona. And when I coached at Seattle University, the same thing. So I would then bring players with me to, so I'm on the board of Boys and Girls Club, still am, very involved in the community. And I would get players to do volunteer work. And what it did is expose them to different situations, to other people, to different ideas, a lot of different things. I've had players do everything, a lot in law enforcement. I've had doctors, attorneys, teachers, nurses. You can go the gamut. And it's been very, very rewarding. Everything. It's been fun.
What do you think someone that isn't in sports doesn't understand about being an athlete? And maybe and in another way saying, what are the skill set of an athlete that kind of that really translates to the business world?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting even for me now doing this, because I'm a financial representative and then a broadcaster too. Um, in order to be good in sports, or really to be good at anything, you have to work. So here's my favorite quote. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Okay. Like you're not going to be successful unless you put the work in. And to be good in sports, I mean, you got to grind. Okay. And you got to put the time in. And that's why I said, you can coach people and do a practice, but when you love it, it's really not work, And so, and I don't care if you're in sports or any kind of business, you got to put the work in. So when players or coaches are done with their careers, which is very difficult, honestly, to go from being a player to then working, it takes time. But that, they're used to being on time, which means early. They're used to being coached. And so being coached, it's very important to understand what that means. And that means being coachable. So being coachable means that you can take, I don't say criticism, but you can take someone critiquing what you do to be better and then implementing that. And that's being coachable. So they have that quality. They understand being part of a team, playing a role. They understand how to achieve goals. Usually the really good ones are very critical of themselves. I've learned that particularly, well, with everyone, but particularly with high-level players, words matter a lot. And so you have to be careful what you say. But that's why a lot of athletes and former coaches, the business world loves them because they're highly competitive, self-motivated, and they want to be at the top.
What are some of your fondest memories of being a head coach at
Oh,
University of Arizona and Long Beach and
oh, I
stuff?
have great memories. I mean, I know like people ask me all the time, you know, about coaching. I didn't like it. I loved it. Definitely a favorite being around the players, listening, learning from them. I mean, definitely learn about music, what's important in how they see the world at their time. It's different than when you're older. And but I love the relationships and still do. And I have a lot of very good relationships with them most of my players. Um, I remember when I was at Long Beach. I mean, we were really good. I mean, we were top 10 every week basically for 12 years. And one trip I always try, especially when I got players from outside my area, we'd always go back and play in their home area at least once during their 4 years. So here's a memory. We went back to the DC area, and we were good, really good. And our congressman in Southern California brought us to Congress, and we were introduced on the floor of Congress, and then had dinner, or excuse me, lunch in the congressional dining hall with our congressman. And I mean, that was, I didn't even realize at that time how big a thing that was. I mean, that was pretty cool. Obviously, playing in Final Fours was big. Um, Played with against and some of the best players in the world. Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper. I mean, I can go on and on. Players that, Pat Summitt, we play them all the time. Play Tennessee, and I knew Pat very well. At Arizona, and now the coach at Arizona is Adia Barnes, who's one of my former players. Recruiting her, and she was very overlooked as a player, and ended up being at that time Pac-10 Player of the Year, first team All-American. Went to University of Arizona, first NCAA tournament. I mean, all these great things, and then even in Seattle, taking a team going from Division II to Division I. And honestly, I don't know a lot about Division II except competitive. And in the first year, we were eligible Division I, winning our conference. I have so many great memories. It's not just the winning, it's the people. It's really the people. And, when I was just inducted a year ago into the University of Arizona Sports Hall of Fame, and I said in my speech, when you get inducted as a coach, it's, and all these other people were inducted as players. So here I'm the coach. It's on a player, it's on really about what they do. But as a coach, it's on the team. It's on the people that worked with me, all my assistants. So the only reason you get good as a coach is because of the players and coaches around you. It's not an individual thing. But I absolutely loved it. It was fun.
How is it being a commentator and then maybe commenting on, watching your former player,
Mhm.
being a head coach?
Okay, I get my basketball fix doing broadcasting, and it's fun. So I do a lot of Pac-12 games, and then actually I do games for ESPN and the WAC conference, Western Athletic Conference, and there I do both men and women. I love it. It's fun. I prep as if I'm preparing to coach a game. So I really enjoy going to practices and shoot arounds. And the great thing is, because I know all the coaches, they've been great with me. They let me in. They share things with me that maybe they don't do for everyone else. And I try to be very I try to teach as I'm broadcasting, so that the general public will understand of why coaches are making adjustments, what they're trying to do. Um, Pac-12 is to watch how it's changed. I mean, arguably the best conference in the country with the best players. It's been wonderful. It's been fun. And to watch Adia blossom and take Arizona, back. I believe this year they have a chance to be a top 10 team. It's fun. It's very rewarding, and I'm having a lot of fun.
What has gone into your, transition into uh, more of a business world life and in
Yeah.
a different work?
Yes. So when I left Seattle U and moved back to Tucson, so my family stayed in Tucson when I was in Seattle. What's great, well, number one, the weather, and being back in the university setting. So I had and I appreciate the University of Arizona really, bringing me back and involving me in there. So that's been great. But it's been so much fun to be back and see Adia do a tremendous job of watching her grow as a coach has been very rewarding. We're very close, and to watch her when she took over the program, which was really struggling, to so let me try to make this easy. When she brought in Ari McDonald, and Ari sat out and had to when she transferred from Washington. And the team that year won 6 games, and to watch them overnight change. Now winners want to be around other winners, and so having a Ari has helped Adia bring in other great recruits, and it's been fun. It's been fun to watch.
What made you switch into selling life insurance and
Well, okay, so how I got into that is when I left Seattle U, one of my financial advisor always felt because she was a former coach and said to me, Joan, you're going to be terrific at this. And she actually wanted me when I left U of A. Okay. She wanted me to become an advisor at that point, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I still had the coaching bug. So I went to Seattle and coached. So when I came back, I decided to try it. So I was actually with another company for a few years, and then went to New York Life, which was a great decision for me. They actually like me broadcasting too, which is great because they're very involved. Actually sponsor both the Pac-12 basketball tournament and ACC tournament. I basically coach. I just do it in a different way. You got to earn people's trust. So I do definitely, we do life insurance, long-term care, annuities, but I do now because I have securities license, I do investing. I do a lot of retirement. And I enjoy it. Like I didn't have to continue to work, but I like to work. I like doing it. And I'm good at it. It's fun. So my natural market are, coaches and teachers, people in sports world, but I have a lot of different clients from all walks of life, and I'm going to do this as long as I can for the rest of my life. And it's fun. It actually helps that you being analytical, but it's definitely relationship based. Like people can tell right away if you're in it for the money. It's just like being a coach. Like when you're sitting at a family's kitchen table and you're trying to recruit a player, I mean, they can tell right away if you're sincere. And it's the same thing in the financial world. So my business has grown, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'll say that.
is it a part of it a competitive outlet for you?
Well, definitely. It's very interesting as to statistically based as basketball and practicing and everything. Being in the financial world is definitely a lot of numbers, and they know, and New York Life knows how well I'm doing. They compare you to your office, they compare you nationally, they reward you when you do well. And so that's the reward, but that's not why you do it. To me, you do it really because you're helping people. And so that's what we try to do. And, so like when I was coaching, you coach a player for 4 years, but my relationship, and I told them this, and I meant it, is for the rest of their lives. And that's how I'm doing my business right now.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think throughout your journey, even though you were in sports for the majority of it and still are, the correlation between business and sports and all the skills that are learned within sports, they just translate so well to
They
the
do.
rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do still do a lot of speaking. I just did actually a Zoom. Last year I was in person, and it was for a class at the University of Arizona for student athletes, all different kinds of sports where to help them transition from being an athlete to then going in business. So I was there on a panel, and this was actually just a few weeks ago, on a panel with a number of other business people. And, so we talk, but then we answer a lot of questions just to help the athletes try to figure out. Some know what they want to do or they think they do, and some don't. To just answer questions, but it's fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think as much help as there can be for athletes to help them figure out what's next, and I think hearing how much their skill set translates, and how being able to be on time and work hard and be analytical, all those things will help them in the future, and kind of leaning into those sports qualities can lead to success afterward.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. I really appreciated hearing your story, and hearing your journey from playing as a little girl to coaching and being a Hall of Famer.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.